All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're entering finally the phase two of this downfall of Canadian real estate. Before I get into that, briefly, I will touch on phase one, and most of you know exactly what happened. We'll get into phase two, and if you stay till the end, you will hear about phase three, in my personal opinion. So, phase one, it was very simple, right? Like we saw that shock that most people did not believe it will happen because let's remember what happened in the beginning, right? So, first, people said there's no way that Bank of Canada will increase interest rates, and they cannot do that. At the time, I remember talking to mortgage brokers and whatnot, and I asked them, what if there is a possibility? Let's just assume that particular possibility is on the table that the interest rates will rise. If let's say they double from 1.5 or 2%, they go to 3.5 or 4%, and 99.9% said no chance. In 2021 and 2022, they said this is impossible. They cannot do it. Absolutely cannot do it. Well, they did it. They raised it up to 6 or 7% in a particular segment of time. However, it was the record time of that interest rate increase. And we saw that shock, right? So now we're entering the phase two. And this is very important to understand because, in my opinion, this phase two segment, right, is the worst. So why would I say that? Because it's nor a no or a yes. It's a maybe, and nobody knows. So it's that anticipation. Is that a roller coaster? Whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, unpredictable. You can call it whatever you want, right? But if I go back to sales, right, and my mentor, my coach, when I got asked back in the day, a long time ago, I said, "What's the worst client to have? A yes client or a no client?" I said, "Well, maybe the no client, right? Because they will not buy or whatever." They said, "No, you're completely wrong. The worst is the maybe." And I said, why? And I did not understand for a long time because it wasn't clear to me, right? But then when you start following up that process with a client or with a relationship, when you're left with a maybe, right? It's not a no, like a hard no, and it's not a yes. So you keep wasting your time, your energy. It's always on your mind. And for some reason, those maybe people, they're always stuck in your head, right? Like, and salespeople know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you keep twisting and turning, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said this, I said that. How can I help? And you keep trying. So I believe this phase two, it's the same paranoia, right? Like, people are stuck. Some of people that I can see are seeing their bank accounts kind of shrink. They see that there's the opportunity is slowly being lost in real estate market when it comes to their employment or earning money. It's becoming harder, more challenging, more fear in the market, definitely. And you see that segment that in some real estate markets, we have seen crashes of 30%, right? So I know some of the people say, well, we are not in a recession, right? Well, the numbers are giving it in plain sight, okay? And there's another video coming up where I will cover all of the provinces of Canada, and some actually commented, well, why are you saying all Canada, all Canada? Some provinces are okay. And I will get into that, what I exactly mean and what the future holds for some of these other provinces. But for now, let's talk about British Columbia and Ontario, right? So they're hit the most, they've seen the most increases. And that phase two is that push and pull now, right? Like, people, they're like, well, let me hold on a little bit longer, like just a little bit more, and I'll be okay. And that little bit more is costing you more, right? And then there's pressures, right? There's pressure, maybe a partner, kids, family. I asked some people, I'm like, why are you doing whatever you're doing, right? And what I asked exactly is like, look, you're bleeding every single month on your household, on vehicles, on image, just and they said, well, I don't want to lose it all because I fit in a certain bracket of people, which is absurd or insane in my opinion. But they believe they are amongst these people that behave, buy, or think or trade the same way, blah, 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 whatever, right? But they are afraid to lose their status and they're willing to sacrifice time, money, even family in some examples. And I don't understand that. So I think this phase of maybe phase two is definitely horrible and it will continue to sink. And some of my followers, and if you're not my follower, please subscribe to the channel and let us grow together. But some of my subscribers and followers, they know I was talking about this in 2023, 4, 5, and now in 2026, right? Like the market will continue to fall. And even in 2026, it will obviously continue to fall. I know there's, haters out there and people that are like, oh, what are you talking about? Things will shift. And well, they will not. Like it's just almost, let me call it almost impossible for it to bounce back. And one interesting, I would say, imagination when it comes to some of these folks holding on to a straw, holding on to the belief that the market will bounce back. Once I asked this particular person, I said, well, okay, fine. Let's imagine it will not happen, but let's imagine. What do you believe it will happen in the next 6 months to a year, right? And what does your recovery, imaginary recovery, look like? What is the number? Because a recovery means a plus, means a gain, means something going up, right? And they said, well, I need between 20 to 25% of growth. I said, oh, hold on a second. You said you need 20 to 25% of a boom in real estate market, a price recovery in order for you to be fine or satisfied or whatever the case is. They're like, yes. So that basically showed me that they need and they're underwater by 20 to 25%, right? So what would happen after? I don't know. Maybe if they would see that particular recovery, they would sell immediately and do something else with their money. But I think as of now, I don't believe that the recovery will show up anytime soon and definitely not in 2026. But let's move to phase three. So the phase three is the phase where people will start to realize that they're actually broke, bankrupt, broke, finished, and they actually have to. They have to find a solution. This is not a joke. Nobody's coming to save you, and this is it. So they will have to either leave the keys, and yes, we laughed at the Americans back in 2007 and 8. We told them how they had no idea. They're driving these big trucks. They're spending all this money. They're living lavish lifestyles and they're crazy and the banks are lending and they owe so much more money than us Canadians and we're so smart and yada, yada, yada. We know the story. Now we are in the same boat, but our boat has much, much more holes. And I believe the impact of this crash, it'll be epic. It'll be probably something that maybe like I don't know like the actual entire civilization ever experienced that, but definitely in the last 30 or 50 years, Canadians have not experienced anything as close to what is coming, in my personal opinion, in phase three. And I would also like to touch, because speaking to some, I would say, experts, right? And I'll make another video on this a little bit more in depth. And it was the actual recovery, how we recovered in 2008. And some of you guys remember, we compared ourselves to the United States and all of that stuff. And we kind of had that bounce because, as far as I can remember, we saw what was happening, and the graphs in 2008 started going down in Canada and all of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, we saw that, 20% down and then 20% up, right? So there was a huge gap with only a short period of time, right? And speaking to an expert back in the day in 2022, they said, well, this is just a phase, and this phase is going to be for a short period of time. And if you don't get into the market right now, you will regret it for the rest of your life, because you will never, ever be able to buy a real estate in Canada ever again. I said, why are you so certain? Well, then they started going into, 2007-8 financial crisis, and the 90s, and this and that, and yada, yada, yada. I said, I have no idea where you're getting this kind of imaginary idea from, but this is serious, right? Like the impact. So most people believed the impact will be quick, in and out, right? Like within 1 year, you'll see that 40% boom and everything is good, right? So people gonna make a lot of money, but people did not this time around. I think a lot of people that suffered all these years going through this phase two, which is going to be extremely painful. Phase three, they will realize, and they will have to, whether they like it or not, call these shots and making real moves. No BS. Because when there's no money left on the table, like it's going to be, cents on the dollar. So I truly hope you gain some value out of this video. Thank you all for staying till the end. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.